welcome to the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. I'm Charlie Burris. That is Zach Reagan. Wherever you listen throughout the world, thank you very much for listening to us. We talk everything Vols every week here on the Big Orange Podcast. And if you want to listen to that regularly, go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple or Spotify. When you get there, rate, review, but you got to subscribe. And if you do subscribe, you won't miss our shows when we drop them on Mondays. And speaking of Mondays, there's one right now. And that means we are live on YouTube. So you got to go to the YouTube too. A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers. And if you hit that notification bell over there, along with the subscribe, the like button, yada, yada. But that notification bell, you'll get notified when we go live. And you can come hang out, be a part of the show, comment. It's the absolute best. We love hanging out with everybody. At Charlie_Burris, at ZachTNT, at A to Z Sports, Facebook.com/A to Z Sports Nashville, A to Z Sports.com for everything that Zach writes on the internet. And Zach, man, it's been a crazy year. However many months ago, it was almost 6 months ago at this point, 5 months ago. We had a show that I began by saying I didn't know if I would ever be able to have a show like this. And that was the program that we had after the Tennessee Volunteers baseball team won a national championship. That was an absolute blast. What a time to be alive that was. Incredible. And tonight, I don't want to say that I never saw Tennessee making the playoff, because I think 12 teams, I mean, eventually the odds are going to be in your favor at a certain point. But to be in the very first year of the playoff, going to Ohio State, Tennessee fans, they're buying up every ticket in the place. The hype around this city right now is just crazy. And this is another one. I don't know that I just that I saw this one coming, but man, I can't believe that it's here. That we're going to be previewing a Tennessee playoff game, Zach. What's up, man?
Yeah, I feel like we make a lot of optimistic predictions for this team we have for a long time, and you try to be realistic, but you always you go on the optimistic side, and a lot of times it just doesn't work out. I mean, last year, I think I had them maybe like going 9-3 in the regular season, 10-2 maybe. They finish 8-4. You win a bowl game, get to 9 wins. A lot of times outside of that 2022 season, when a lot of people kind of predicted 8-4 type of season, it doesn't quite get to where you think it's going to with these predictions. Even though you know they have a chance, you know they're good enough. Will they actually do it and get there? And this year is a little bit sweeter, I think, because I feel like Tennessee was on the back burner. You know, it was Ole Miss, it was Missouri, even it was Alabama, obviously, it was LSU, it was Texas A&M. Some people thought South Carolina might be a dark horse. All these teams that they were getting the playoff hype, and it was Tennessee. You know, they stayed steady. It wasn't perfect. They had a couple of rough bumps in the road there, especially that Arkansas game and some slow starts. But, you know, they didn't have any massive missteps like losing to Vanderbilt or getting blown out at home by Kentucky. Nothing like that. You know, they handled business when they had to. So in that aspect, we'll see what happens from here. But just getting to this playoff was pretty sweet, considering the tone around the team from the national media going into this season.
It's truly incredible. And when you think about, as you were saying there, the losers, because that's what they are. The losers in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, are sitting at home. Well, they're not. I guess they're going to the ReliaQuest Bowl. God bless them. We wish them well.
Been there, done that.
Oh, we've been there. We've been there so many times. And the Tennessee Volunteers are in this playoff with a shot at a national championship, obviously on tonight's show. Basically, the entire thing is going to be about that playoff preview with this Ohio State game and everything that's been going on around it. Maybe a little transfer portal talk, because ridiculously, that's also going on right now. And then, nothing too big. But the Tennessee basketball team is also the number one team in America and just had one of the most thrilling wins that you will ever see a team have. And I'm just excited about it all the way around. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about it right after I tell you about the good folks at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans have been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some has stayed the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. So plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200 plus locations across the state of Tennessee. That is fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Go support them because they are supporting us. And let's get down to brass tacks. Tennessee, Ohio State, Columbus, Ohio. 8 p.m. Eastern time. ABC, I believe, is your network of choice there. And this is it. Like, it's not the national championship, but in this spot, you are the primetime game. You're the final playoff game of the weekend. 1 on Friday, 3 on Saturday. You're the final game in the primetime slot. Herb Street and Fowler are calling the game, but they're the top guys, so that's who it's going to be. You're the focal point of the entire college football world this weekend, and it's truly a sight to behold. And let's start off here, and I'm kind of interested to know if anybody in our comments might be going to the game. But Tennessee, let's see. Austin Stanley of the A of A to Z Sports, he sent into our group text just earlier. Yes, it was this tweet right here. It's a tweet from Trey Wallace. He said that he had spoken to StubHub. And StubHub says that of all of the tickets sold, 37% are accounted to Tennessee fans, while only 34% to Ohio State fans. You also have to wonder, because I've seen reports of this, there have been Ohio State fans that are refusing to sell to Tennessee fans, and then Tennessee fans are just lying and saying that they're Ohio State fans. So how much of that 34% for Ohio State fans is actually Tennessee fans? I saw Barrett Sleep predicting 35,000. I don't know if it would be 35,000. That would be crazy, but 25. Even 20 is huge. But if it's 25 to 30, something like that, what a just crazy thing that would be to behold in this one. And speaking of the A of A to Z Sports, Austin Stanley, he will be there at the game. Actually, it's gonna. How big of a fact do you think that's going to be, Zach? If let's say Tennessee gets 30,000 people in, that's maybe hopeful, but let's say it's that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely can help. I mean, 100,000 Ohio State fans is pretty tough to overcome. We'll see what it actually happens. I don't know what to predict. You see this all over the place, like you said. There's numbers ranging from like 35,000 to who knows? It could be 10,000. We just don't know how many fans will travel. We do know Tennessee fans always travel extremely well. I mean, you look at the bowl games. There's a lot of times you see those old bowl game highlights even in recent years when Tennessee hasn't been that great, and there's a lot of orange in the crowd. The door's open. Obviously, there's a lot of tickets available still. It's secondary market. You got to go. The tickets aren't as expensive as I really thought they would be, but they're not super cheap either. It's not like you can just grab one for $10 and go up there. It's an event where you gotta fork out some money for hotel rooms and accommodations, all that stuff. But the door's open if Tennessee fans want to make the trip. How many will be deterred by the cold weather and all that? That remains to be seen. But if they want to make a statement, the opportunity is certainly there. And I think that can help tilt things, not really in your favor, but it just takes the Ohio State crowd out of it a little bit. I mean, it's still going to be a tough, hostile road atmosphere. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You're in enemy territory. There's going to be more Ohio State fans there no matter what than Tennessee fans. You're going to have to find a way to overcome that. But if you can drown that out in any sense, I mean, that's huge. I don't know if 35,000 fans, though, in a 100,000 seat stadium is going to be enough to create problems for Ohio State's offense if they're being loud, especially depending on how spread out they are. But I mean, you never know. It's better than nothing. And just a 70-30 split. I think the players will feed off of that if it got to that. A little bit of extra energy there, just knowing that you've got a lot of fans there behind you supporting you. We'll see on Saturday night what it actually ends up being.
In the nosebleeds, right? I mean, this is real time, Monday, 7 p.m. In nosebleeds right now on StubHub, who Trey Wallace spoke to, $148 to get into this game, which relative to that's dirt cheap relative to what I would think this game may.
Well, I mean, you see some SEC games that are way more expensive than that,
right? I mean, if this game is in Neyland Stadium, the cheapest ticket on this thing's gonna be like $800. Like, it would have been absolutely insane in the exact opposite direction. And you just have this formula that if I was an Ohio State fan is just putting a little, like, just a little bit of that uneasiness in my stomach. Because Ryan Day, obviously, I mean, if you're an Ohio State fan, you probably hate the guy right now, for one thing. And if you don't, your faith is shaken, where you're just like, who, in big games, who even is this guy? And especially against our biggest rival. And then you have a lot of them that, at least that I've seen, they're kind of talking like, oh, well, what if he left? What if he just left? Wouldn't that be great? And then they're also saying, oh, well, if we lose to Tennessee, he's fired. Like, it's that sort of a situation. You have Tennessee fans, 20 to 30,000 tickets potentially, something like that. A huge, like a fourth to a third of the stadium potentially to Tennessee fans because of that. I don't know. It's kind of a, in some sense, if you are an Ohio State fan and you don't go to this game, you could sort of consider it a win-win, because it could be this. You don't go, and then they win, and then you go to the Rose Bowl, and nice and simple. And I think there's a lot of Ohio State fans that think that, where they're just like, yeah, we're not great. I kind of wish Ryan Day would get fired, but we're probably going to win this Tennessee game. And then you go to the Rose Bowl, and you didn't really miss anything. Or you lose, and it sucks, and then you saved your money having to watch Ohio State lose this game. And it's just all of these things combined. It's the perfect formula for them to just be selling off their tickets. And Tennessee fans are buying them up like crazy. They're $150 right now. And that, like I said, that's real time right this second in the app. And I would say, if you are a Tennessee fan, get yourself to Columbus, Ohio. As many fans as you can possibly pack into this place, because this is setting up. If Tennessee can come prepared and bring its A game, this could be the legendary game of all legendary games, where not only did you take over their stadium, but you walk in and you win. And the images that you would have of Tennessee having won a playoff game, and then the place is filled with their fans like that, the LSU game in 22, the Oklahoma game this year, just those indelible images that I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Like, oh, what an insane opportunity this is for Tennessee right now.
Yeah, I think this game really sets up in a way that it's good for Tennessee. Like, the noise around this game, I feel like most of the conversation is kind of centering on Ohio State and that whole situation, Ohio State fans. And I think Kirk Herbstreit brought a little more attention to that with his comments about fans booing, which I thought that was, I know he's an Ohio State guy. I didn't understand why he made those comments. That was a little strange to me. But still, you've got all that noise going on with that loss to Michigan. If you watch Ohio State media right now, you listen to Ryan Day talk to anybody, there's so many questions about Michigan. Like his press conference today, question after question about Michigan. Have you fixed what happened at Michigan, and about the game? And same thing with Chip Kelly when he was talking to the media. And it's like, that game's like behind them. Like, they've lost the game. They've got to move on. If they want to have a chance to beat Tennessee and Oregon and make a run, like, they can't be thinking about that game at all. But that's all it seems like they're talking about around the program. And meanwhile, Tennessee, everybody's like, yeah, they've started slow in some games. The offense hasn't been as prolific as it typically is with Josh Heupel. Their defense is pretty good, but can they stop Ohio State's wide receivers? Is Ohio State going to throw the ball a lot more than they did against Michigan, and especially with Tennessee's really good run defense? But that's about all the talk you hear about Tennessee. Most of this kind of centers around what happens with Ohio State. If they win this game, then you got to go play Oregon. That's a really tough path. If you lose this game, what happens to Ryan Day? Like, what's that conversation like throughout the offseason? I think that's good for Tennessee. Every time we've seen Tennessee with kind of the attention on them, you remember 2022 going into that Georgia game when they were number one in the playoff rankings, and even later on in that month when they lost to South Carolina, when all they had to do was win out, get in the 14 playoff. It just seems like they don't do well in those situations. They do best when they're a little bit under the radar, and that's not a great thing, about Tennessee. They've got to figure out, if you want to be a elite program that is in the conversation year after year, you're going to have to live with expectations, and you're going to figure out how to handle those in a way that you can go out and perform at a high level. But for this game, I think it sets up well for Tennessee. It's just a strange vibe around Ohio State right now. I don't know if Ohio State fans would agree with that. I mean, that's me from the outside looking in. I'm not in that Ohio State bubble, so maybe the fan base feels different. Maybe the players feel different. I don't know, but from the outside, it does seem like a weird vibe where you go into this playoff off of a loss and you're still really good. You have a really, really good roster, but what's the noise? What's the mindset? What's the feeling there? It's a lot of chaos. It feels. I don't know if chaos is the right word. There's just a lot of uncertainty around that program right now, it seems like.
I think I might have said this last week, but I think if Tennessee can jump on Ohio State early and you punch them in the mouth, do what you did at Georgia, get up 10-0, kind of shell-shock them a little bit, the Boo Birds are going to come out in this one. I think it's going to be Ryan Day stinks, throw some tomatoes at this guy and get him off our sideline. Like, this is they are so ready. I think I also said this last week. Like, we've been there as Tennessee fans. We know what it's like to watch a team where you want this coach booted into outer space. We know that life well. And when small things go wrong, you're booing. It's just, dang it, get this out of here. And that feeling, it just seems like that upwelling is there with Ohio State fans, and you could really take advantage of that. Hopefully they do. Some of Tennessee's best drives of the entire season were that first half against Georgia. Do that again here, and you give yourself a true opportunity, because I'm not sure that they would be as resilient as Georgia was in that game, because I don't think the crowd is going to be as good as it was in Sanford that day, to the point that we're making there about, potentially a lot of Tennessee fans being there. And I just think they're not, like, the crowd's not going to be as into it. They're going to go, we're really doing this. We're going to lose to Michigan and then Tennessee. Seriously, are you kidding me? And it is ripe for the picking. If you can come in and do that right off the jump, that would just be so massive. Now, the real conversation is physically take the crowd and just the general vibe out of this. How do these teams match up? And I think Ohio State has an incredibly talented roster. They went and just pillaged the transfer portal and spent $20 million or whatever the number was and did all that stuff. But their offensive line is seriously banged up. Center out for the rest of the season. I believe, I want to say tackle. I think. And there's talk that they may be rotating one of the guards.
Yeah.
And like, it's a little bit of a dire situation there. And Tennessee has one of the best defensive lines in America. So there's something that you could take advantage of. They went to the bargain bin for their quarterback with Will Howard. Is he bad? No, not necessarily. But is he a dude that's going to carry you to victory on his back? Also, no. And if you can crush him, and Tennessee has done that to so many quarterbacks all season long, that's another huge, huge opportunity there to take the wind out of the place. And I'll start there. What strengths do you think Tennessee has in this one?
Yeah, I think the obvious one you already pointed out, the defensive line is a huge advantage for Tennessee. But, I mean, obviously, Ohio State's going to try to neutralize that. I don't think you're going to see the same game plan that we saw against Michigan. If we do, there will be some serious boo birds in the horseshoe. Fans will lose their mind, and understandably so. I mean, that's not the way that Ohio State, I feel like, is going to go beat Tennessee in this game. I think they got to go air it out. Now, that's one thing where the cold weather might work in your advantage a little bit. It's a lot harder to throw the ball and just cut it loose when it's 25 degrees outside. But Ohio State has really good wide receivers. I mean, Tennessee's secondary is improved, especially at the cornerback position with Jermon McCoy and Ricky Gibson. But Ohio State's got some dudes. I mean, they got some future NFL guys. Jeremiah Smith is going to be a guy in the NFL. He's a Pro Bowl type receiver. That's a tough guy to shut down. You hope that they're not going to be able to go vertical as really get down the field, that Tennessee's defensive line will be able to exploit that offensive line, get in the backfield, pressure the quarterback, and not allow those vertical shots to happen, to have a chance at it. Now, Tennessee can be exploited in the intermediate game, especially across the middle of the field. I imagine Ohio State's going to try to attack the linebackers in coverage. That would probably be their best game plan, I feel like, to go down the field and you burn clock that way, get down the field, get in the red zone. And I don't think Ryan Day's kind of already said, like, you've got to score touchdowns in this game. So that they're not going to be holding them to field goals in the red zone. It's going to be 4-down territory when you get down there, unless it's a weird, unique, like 4th and goal from the 15 or something like that. You're going to have to stop these guys 4 times when they do get into the red zone. Otherwise, they're going to be going for it and trying to score and put points on the board. But I think that wide receiver cornerback matchup is going to be huge. You got to win some of those one-on-ones. You just have to. And the defensive line cannot have a game like they did against Georgia. I know Georgia's offensive line's better. Like Tate Ratledge came back fully healthy for that game, and that gave them a huge boost against Tennessee's defensive line. But they just weren't able to pressure Carson Beck at all. And that was one of the big differences in that game, especially in the second half. If you have another game like that where you can't get pressure with 4 guys, 5 guys, it's going to be tough. I mean, they'll throw the ball down the field, and they're going to win some of those one-on-one matchups. The receivers are too good to shut them down on every rep. I don't care how good your cornerbacks are. There's going to be some plays that they hit on if they have time.
Yeah, no doubt. You had a ton of comments right now. Apologies for not getting to them all. It's just a lot. Zach, this happens most weeks, I feel like. Zach doing my job for me. He says, hey, everyone, support the channel. Hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you, Zach. He also points out that the last time Tennessee played Ohio State, they won. Tennessee posted about that this week.
30 years ago, though.
It was 1995 Citrus Bowl.
Lots of Ohio State fans are still salty about that one.
Yep. The Eddie George Heisman year. And Tennessee beat Heisman Eddie George. And that's great. So, hey, 1-0 against Ohio State. And that's the only time we've ever played in our history. So that is good. But
it's crazy if they haven't played more. That is just wild. Like
never played in the state of Ohio.
That's wild too.
Yeah, it's supposedly I saw that stat somewhere. Never played in the state of Ohio. This will be the very first time. So I'm obviously on pins and needles to see how this goes, but it's gonna be more than just the crowd shows up. We always knew Tennessee fans were gonna show up to this one, but it's can Tennessee make the plays now in that same conversation? And some folks in the comments have been bringing it up, but the weather. So we've now gotten closer. The weather's in a little better view. It's going to be bitterly cold. It's going to be bitterly cold here. It's going to be bitterly cold there. I think here that night it's supposed to be like 20, and there it's supposed to be like 17 or something. I mean, it's going to be really cold. No matter
once
where
you get in that range, it's a different kind of cold. That's not just you can't get warm cold.
And here's the thing for Ohio State fans. It would have been the exact same thing in Neyland Stadium.
Yeah.
So you're not special. Congratulations.
Well, the weather thing is so weird anyway. Like, I understand part of the talk, like some of these guys, like Nico. I mean, he comes from Southern California. I looked up earlier today when he played in, like, the playoffs in high school in 2022 at Warren High School. The high that day was, like, 70 in November. I mean, that's the kind of weather he comes from. That's what he's used to. He hasn't done it a lot. I do think that can be a factor, but Ohio State has players from the South and from Florida on their roster as well. So it's like a lot of people are going to be dealing with the same thing at this point. And the state of Tennessee, like, I don't know if you know anything about Knoxville, but Rocky Top mountains, it gets pretty cold there in the winter.
Yeah.
In East Tennessee. So I don't, like, it's not like this is Miami traveling up to Ohio.
and we pointed this out when this first got brought up, when sort of this game was coming into view. I mean, the best players on this Ohio State roster are not from Ohio. They're all from Georgia. They're all from Florida.
Carnell
They're
Tate,
all from
Florida
Texas.
guy?
Yeah, he is. I believe Jeremiah Smith is also, if not, and then Caleb Downs is from Georgia, because during that actual show where I'm talking about, I looked it up. And Caleb
that's
Downs
right.
is from Georgia. I do kind of want to know on Jeremiah Smith now. This is another one.
He better not be from Alaska. That's really.
I said it, and I don't.
From Minnesota or something.
It
seems like most receivers are from the South or out west, typically.
Miami Gardens, Florida. So, yeah. So if
Dante Thornton's from Maryland, so who has the advantage there on cold weather?
Exactly. So, hey, Tennessee has the players that are more used to it. We have the advantage, actually. We freaking flip that Uno card around, baby. No, it's going to affect both teams. It sucks to play in the cold. It's going to feel like you're hitting a brick wall when you get tackled. Like that's what happens when it's cold like that. That's winter football. Every game after this is going to be, I mean, you're going to Southern California if you win this game. So, and it won't be inside. It won't be in a dome, but you'll be in Los Angeles, where the low gets to a freezing 55 degrees sometimes.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, on a really, really cold day. So tough that out. And I think to whatever extent, if per se the wind is whipping a little bit, you have the superior running back. I saw it. Went back and looked, and there was an Ohio State fan in our comments that was like offended that I said Tennessee had the advantage at running back. Let me be super clear here. Surely they're just ignorant. You got the kid from Ole Miss at Ohio State. He's good. He hasn't had a very good season overall. It's been like fine season, but nothing particularly, overly impressive. Dylan Sampson is the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. In years past, in the last 5 years, the SEC Offensive Player of the Year has won the Heisman Trophy 3 times.
The 2 times it didn't, it was Tennessee players.
It was Tennessee. It was Hendon Hooker and it was Dylan Sampson. That's the only time that it hasn't been the Heisman. It's just crazy. So I need that for the Ohio State fans that will watch this. The last show, we had a ton of them. I'm sure it'll be the same for this one. Tennessee has the better running back. Do not delude yourself there. Tennessee averages, I think it's like 238 on the ground or something like that a game. Ohio State's like 165. That's another thing. Like, you have a market advantage there, and it's something where in the cold, in a whipping wind, you maybe have an advantage.
It's going to be tough to run the ball against Ohio State, though. I mean, they have
great
a good
defense.
Yeah, so it's
They do.
It's going to be a battle. Even if you do have the better running back, it's still going to be tough.
Let's see in terms, because I think both of these defenses are right near the top of total defense nationally.
Oh, it has all the makings of a game where you should take the under. It feels like.
Oh, super, super cold. 2 great defenses. And two offenses that have been kind of pretty good at times, but middle of the road a lot of the time. Like, so Ohio State #1 in total defense. Now that's against Joe competition in a fake league, but and then Tennessee is number 4 in total defense against actual football teams. So do with that what you will. And I think that, just like you were saying, this is a prototype, bitterly cold, potentially windy. I saw maybe like a 20% chance of snow. And then Tennessee probably going to lean on the run. Like, you're probably talking a 21-17 final score here on a good day. So I'm kind of excited about that. I guess it's something
that go play in the NFL. You better get used to it.
Yeah. This a December playoff game that's going to be a defensive battle. You're going to run into that a lot in the pros. So I think it's a fun thing that you in the past essentially have never seen in college football. I mean, it's unprecedented. A late December playoff game. This is a singular event as of now. Obviously, we'll see it for years to come. But right now, this is such a unique thing that you're getting to experience. And you're not going to back down because, oh, it's chilly outside. Oh, no. They're going to come prepared. Heupel's been saying, and I think what he's been saying in press conferences, it gets cold here too. We
Well, that guy's
practice in the
definitely not
morning.
worried about the cold. He's from South
No,
Dakota. I mean, he referenced that today.
he did. What did he say?
Like it's a June day or so. This is like a June day. 25
He's like 20 degrees. That's a June day in South Dakota. Yeah. But it really is true. I mean, it's just something that anybody in your position is going to have to do this. Indiana's going to South Bend. South Bend's even further north than Columbus.
Or Clemson, I guess, lucked out. They have to go to Austin.
Yeah, Austin, Texas, which I don't think is going to be anywhere close to as cold. But still, it was always going to be like this. As we said, it's going to be bitterly cold in Tennessee this weekend. So you were never going to escape that element. You have tons of fans coming. The hype is all there. And matchup-wise, advantage at running back, two really great defenses. Where does the dam break? That's really the question, is who can take it there to grasp a victory. To me, for Tennessee, and I hate how kind of oversimplified this probably sounds, but I think it really is the right answer. Can Nico make those throws? Can he make the plays that he's needed to make all season long? The ones that bit him in the Arkansas game, the ones that won in the game against Alabama. Can you hit those explosive takes? There's those explosive plays, and then carry your team to a victory. I mean, am I wrong there? That just feels like that's going to be the dividing line. Is if Will Howard, same for them. If Will Howard can make those plays, now they have the advantage of wide receiver. Make no mistake there. So who will it be?
Yeah, that's definitely. I think for Tennessee, yeah, Nico's got to hit those throws when they're there. You cannot leave any of those on the table in a playoff game at Ohio State. If you got somebody streaking down the field that's got over top of the defense, you got to hit that guy. You got to convert. You got to take advantage of that. For me, I think you've got to establish the run early. We've seen times this year with Tennessee where Dylan Sampson's been bottled up in the first half, and Tennessee's in 2nd and 9. You can't be in 2nd and 9 because then a false start puts you in 2nd and 14, and then you're probably running the ball again to try to get into 3rd and manageable. And if that doesn't work, then suddenly you're in 3rd and long. And I mean, that's how Tennessee loses games right there, is getting into those kind of situations. So you've got to pick up 4 or 5 yards on first down if you run the ball. You've got to get in these 2nd and short-ish type of situations. And on the flip side, just like you're saying, you can't let the wide receivers beat you. They're really talented. That's going to be tough to do. If you're putting Jermod McCoy out there in an island against Jeremiah Smith, they're both 2 future NFL players. One guy's going to win, part of the time. The other guy's going to win his fair share of reps too. So that's where that defensive line and getting that pressure comes into play. You got to do that and defend the middle of the field. I mean, it's really that simple, I think, because I don't think Ohio State's going to go back to trying to run the ball the way they did against Michigan. If they do, great, because that's what Tennessee's best suited at on defense, is stopping the run. Make them one-dimensional and sell out to prevent the deep throws and these chunk plays. And do not let them get in 3rd and 15 and let the quarterback scramble for 20 yards to pick up a first down. Those are the back-breaking moments that cost you games. Letting them off the hook on 3rd and long and not establishing the run are the 2 biggest things I think that could lose this game for Tennessee.
I do wonder how Ohio State's defense operates against the super wide spreads, and I mean, it's something that you don't see a lot in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm, true.
And
that's something too that I don't think people have thought about a lot. Part of the reason, and former Vols tight end Jacob Warren mentioned this earlier this year in an interview this season, these teams are seeing Heupel's offense more and more and more, and it's not that they've there's not a lot to figure out. They know what Heupel's doing. They are more comfortable defending it and knowing what works and getting themselves in favorable matchups where they feel like they can win one-on-one against Tennessee's offense. And they've done that a lot this year. Tennessee's also shot themselves in the foot plenty to contribute to that. But Ohio State does not have the same familiarity with Tennessee's offense. And we saw it the first year or two that Josh Heupel was in the SEC, or that he was the head coach at Tennessee. where these coaches, they talked a lot about how Ryan Day is talking this week about stopping Tennessee's offense. It's, you got to get lined up. You got to get to the ball. You can't tire out. You can't be misaligned. I mean, that's all the focus is just getting lined up. And we heard that from Brian Kelly. We heard it from Eli Drinkwitz, all these Nick Saban at time, in 2022. And that's when Tennessee's offense was at its best in 21 and 22. A lot of that was Hendon Hooker. But those teams just hadn't played. It's one thing to see it on film and practice it, but then actually playing against it, that first time can be a bit of a shock. Now, you still got to execute. If you don't execute, it doesn't matter if Ohio State's misaligned or not. You just got to execute when it's there. But I do think that's a factor that not a lot of people are given thought to, is that Ohio State doesn't have a ton of experience playing against this style of offense. Not like these SEC teams do now, especially now that, Ole Miss is running a version of it. Oklahoma is running a version of it. Mississippi State's running a version of it. Like, it's becoming more widespread now. So maybe that works in Tennessee's advantage a little bit.
I just think back to all of the bowl games that Tennessee has played against Big Ten teams, and you just seem to see a disparity where, what was it? This was a Butch Jones team.
Maybe Northwestern.
Wasn't Northwestern like 10-2 that year?
Yeah, I think they were ranked.
Yeah, had a really good season, and Tennessee just destroyed them. Like, it was just on a complete other plane of existence. Now, I think you've gotten a lot more parity in the last couple of years because the talent has been spread out a lot more by the transfer portal, and these things happen. And we know that Ohio State is uber talented and yada, yada. But, I mean, last year against Iowa, it was an Iowa team that had a couple of players opt out, but that was an Iowa team that had a really good, one of the best seasons in the Big Ten of all the teams last year. I don't remember exactly where they finished.
Their defense was top 4-3 or something crazy.
Yeah, and they could barely score the football. Their offense was some of the worst offense I have ever seen in my entire life.
That quarterback that started against Tennessee last year was real bad.
Should not have been playing quarterback.
No.
But Tennessee went against the vaunted defense there and just kind of ran over, steamrolled them. I mean, 35-0, if I'm thinking right. And I wonder if there's any element of that here to kind of what I was saying. I was making a joke earlier about Ohio State playing in a fake league against fake teams. But in some sense, it is lesser competition, period. They played Oregon and they played Michigan. They lost to both, but in neither did they just have, it wasn't a blowout one way or another or anything crazy like that. But against real defenses that they had, or I guess Oregon's defense is a little suspect. Let's be honest. That's easily their biggest weakness. But against a real defense like Michigan's, this offense really, really struggled despite your Jeremiah Smiths and Emeka Egbuka and, it's Carnell Tate and those guys. They still struggled a lot. And so I wonder if there's a little bit, even now, as much as quote unquote down the SEC was this season, if there's still a little disparity there where Ohio State, despite its record, is maybe not as good as that record might suggest. I don't know. That's pure.
No, their roster's pretty good. Their roster's pretty good.
It is. Uber talented.
Yeah.
But I do, anytime Tennessee plays a Big Ten team, that thought always hangs out in the back of your mind where you go, they play, that's not a real football league. That's not, I don't know. So I throw doubt on that one myself. I doubt that one because I think the talent is just crazy on this Ohio State team. I think they have a bad coach, but the talent is crazy. So I don't know that I would give credence to that one, but I think it's worth bringing up. It's worth mentioning.
Yeah, I'm interested in just seeing how they defend Tennessee, how that style translates if they get in trouble. I mean, because Nick Saban, the best defensive coaches of all time, those first 2 years, and even really maybe the first 2.5 years that he played against Tennessee, he had no answer really for stopping the offense until the second half last season against Tennessee in Tuscaloosa when I don't know what happened with Tennessee in that second half. They should have won that game. They didn't. But based on the first half, they were doing what they wanted to with the ball. 2022, they scored 52 points. Even in 21, they were hitting some big shots, and they were in that game in the fourth quarter and put up a lot of points. It can be a really tough defense to defend if you're not used to it. And also, I feel like maybe Tennessee will try to reach out and do a little inside information on how to beat Ohio State. They've got some connections on that Michigan staff. I don't know how beneficial that stuff is, but anything.
Maybe give Connor a ring. Say,
yeah,
hey,
well,
Connor.
I'm sure he'd be more than willing to help to see Ohio State lose. I wouldn't.
No doubt.
I'd take his call. But you've got, Tennessee's linebackers coach from last year that had a good relationship with the staff, Brian G. Marie, that wasn't really looking to leave, but he's got a close relationship with the head coach at Michigan, Sharon Moore, who has got connections to Josh Heupel and Joey Hosley. They were at Oklahoma together in 2006 and 2007. So there's some connections there. There's some relationships there that you can reach out and be like, hey, what have you seen that this team does? What kind of tells do they have on offense and defense? Is there anything at all that we can use? And anyone from Michigan badly wants to see Ohio State lose. I mean, it's good for Michigan. It's good for recruiting. They're going after a lot of the same players there. It feels like somebody said in the comments earlier, I think it was Elias, I'm not sure. This is the one matchup that it feels like more fans around the country are in Tennessee's corner because everybody wants to see Ohio State lose, which is wild. I didn't realize there was that much disdain for Ohio State kind of nationwide. Maybe it's because there's so many ex-Michigan, former Michigan graduates that are in media, and maybe that's part of it. We hear them a little bit louder than some of the other people, but it definitely seems like this is the one time that's like, yeah, we're all pulling for Tennessee in this one. Don't let us down.
I'm tripping on this a lot, but I feel like this really is the case for everybody in the SEC. I think everybody in this league views Ohio State as they're just kind of born with a silver spoon in their mouth where, I've looked at Tennessee over the last 15 years. And I went, if Tennessee played in the Big Ten, they would have won 9 games every single year in the Big Ten, even during those dark days. Like those teams would have been talented enough. If it was the same exact roster and coaches and everything that Tennessee had, they would have been like a 9-win team in the Big Ten during those years. And I feel like we all look at Ohio State and just go like, okay, yeah, you're in the playoff, but when you actually show up, you never win. And I guess they did that year with Urban.
Yeah. And they could. I mean,
they could.
It really is coaching. I mean, they should have probably won a couple. They should have beat Georgia 2 years ago. And Marvin Harrison getting hurt really did Georgia a favor there, because I feel like that game was definitely going Ohio State's way, and that was a good Georgia team. But it feels like the coaching has let them down, and Ohio State can go out and get almost whoever they want. I mean, it's a great job. You recruit well there. It's kind of like when Kirby took over Georgia. You just need somebody to get you over the hump. I don't know who that person would be, but if they did move on from Day and hired somebody, that's a instantly dangerous. I mean, they're dangerous now. I mean, they're a few wins away from winning a championship if they can get it together. It can be a juggernaut there, but I feel like Ryan Day is definitely what's held them back these last few years. Yeah. And at this point, if they do lose, I don't know if they fire him. I don't know his buyout situation or what they would actually do at this point in college football. Though I wouldn't put anything off the table. Once you've seen Bill Belichick go to North Carolina and some of the other crazy moves that have happened over the last few years, I feel like anything's on the table and anything's possible. But it would be a pretty big move to fire a guy that made the playoff.
I do think. Did I see that Day got the dreaded vote of confidence? I think with the AD,
which is just for recruiting purposes, always, no matter where it's at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that almost makes me think more that if he loses this game, he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
It really does mean that a lot of the time. But we do have to get to this so that we can move on to a little bit transfer portal in the show, a little bit of basketball, because they had an amazing game against Illinois. We got to talk about it. Call it, Zach. We've talked all about the matchup. Now, great defenses, suspect offenses. It's going to be cold. How are you feeling about this one, Zach?
Oh, I mean, the anxiety is going to be at max at Saturday by 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll be really nervous, even though lots of people have said Tennessee's playing with house money in this. I mean, Tennessee doesn't view it that way. Josh Heupel shot that down real quick, but I think fans feel that way. You lose this game in Columbus, it's like, yeah, That's tough. It's a tough draw. You made the playoff, though. Lane Kiffin's sitting at home. Kalen DeBoer's sitting at home. Eli Drinkwitz, Shane Beamer, they're all preparing for bowl games that they don't really want to go to, and you're in the playoff. You're in the mix. So it's a great season for Tennessee no matter what, especially when you consider they had a redshirt freshman quarterback, beating Alabama, beating Florida, and winning some big games for them. So, yeah, the pressure does obviously feel like it's on Ohio State in this one. With that said, man, it's on the road. It's going to be it's Ohio State's house. They're coming off that Michigan loss. I think the players really want to win this game on both sides, but I think Ohio State, the bad vibes around the program, around Ryan Day, I think the players will probably be able to overcome that. I mean, just they probably don't care that much about that stuff. They just want to win the national championship. That's why they're there. I think it's going to be a really, really close game, fairly low scoring, but I mean, I just can't trust Tennessee on the road yet. They haven't shown me that they can win a big game on the road yet. I mean, I know they had that Oklahoma win, and that was a big win, but that wasn't a very good Oklahoma team. You haven't been able to win at Florida against not great Florida teams. You've had good halves against Alabama and Georgia, but you haven't played a complete game. So until they do it, I just can't believe it. So I think Ohio State wins like 24-20. I think it's pretty close.
24-20, Ohio State. Very, very fair. Ohio State winning this game is probably the more quote-unquote likely outcome. They're going to be a heavy favorite. I think everybody's going to choose them to win this game. Kind of to what I was saying earlier with their fans. I don't think it's crazy for them to think, oh, I'll save my money here and then maybe take a trip to Pasadena next week or something like that. And I saw this get brought up, that the last time that Ohio State lost to Michigan and then played an SEC team in the playoff, it was that Georgia game. It was the very first time that it was 4 years ago, if I'm thinking correctly, the very first time that Day lost to Michigan, and now he's on this streak that has their fans hating him. But they lost. They still lost that game, but they did come out with their hair on fire. I remember thinking before that Georgia game, oh, Georgia's going to come out here and run these boys out of the gym.
Yeah, I had that feeling too.
Yeah, I remember distinctly thinking that. I do think Ohio State will come out. Oh, it was 2022. Sorry, not 4 years ago. Whatever. So
yeah,
it was in the middle.
Harrison's a rookie right now in the NFL. So
that's true. Yeah. Marvin Harrison was on that team. But so it was two years ago. Still early on in the streak of losses to Michigan.
Yeah.
Where you weren't sure. I mean, you remember in 2021, like Harbaugh was on death's door as far as Michigan goes. Like,
that 2020 season was not great for Michigan, right? The COVID year? Yeah, he had a rough go.
It was dicey. And then Michigan is turning the corner at that point. It wasn't the same as it is now. This year just feels so much more backbreaking. I mean, it was just brutal. You're 21-point favorite at home. Like all of these things that were stacked up in your favor, and you still blow it. And it's Ryan Day's fault. And this guy is already kind of getting on your nerves, and you just, he can't beat. He's not winning in the playoffs. He's not beating Michigan. What are we even doing here? And I do think they'll come out more on fire. They are going to be motivated. But if Tennessee can come with 30,000, 20 to 30,000, whatever it would be, however many fans, a whole bunch, a fourth of the stadium, even a fifth of the stadium, would be a huge turnout. And then you have that working for you. If you can jump out early, if you can play mistake-free football, which, again, that was something that they did at Georgia relatively well. Probably the best of the Heupel era was that Georgia.
It wasn't the crowd that got them in that one.
Yeah, there wasn't a bunch of false starts and garbage like that. If you can come out and play that clean game, this is winnable for Tennessee. And I don't know. I'm not going to definitively say Tennessee's going to go out here and kick their butt and kick the door down, and this one's the Buckeyes are done for.
That
If
would be
Tennessee
cool.
wins
They
this,
can do that if they want.
oh,
Please do. An
it would
anxiety
be
game would be awesome. I haven't had that since that LSU game.
yeah, be one of the great moments in the history of Tennessee sports, much less just football, but sports in general. But I think if they do, it's going to be a grind them out. It's back and forth, like that Alabama game. I think it'll be kind of like that Alabama game.
Mm-hmm.
You got the lead, then you gave it back, then you had to snatch it back from them right there at the end with the Brazzle touchdown and all stuff. I think it'll be like that. And now, hey, this would be the legendary of all legendary wins. I'll go with the Vols in this one. We'll say 20-17. Super low scoring, and it's as it should be. It'll be a Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson finally starts finding it in that second half, and you know maybe you're down a touchdown at halftime, but in that second half, defense steps up. Sampson finds his feet, 2 touchdowns. You win 2017, something like that. Maybe it's like
this worked for the Alabama game, right? You picked Alabama. I mean, I picked Alabama. You picked Tennessee in that game, right?
That is correct. I believe. Sorry, you're going in and out my headphones.
So I'm trying to capture those same vibes then.
I think that now it might have been the same for the Georgia game. I don't totally remember, but it doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't matter because it worked against Alabama.
Yeah,
we're channeling that that energy regardless. I'll say for everybody else that's watching, drop in with your score prediction if you want to comment. Elias says 20-14 Tennessee. Missed Ohio State field goals end up being decisive.
That could be a big factor for sure.
Yeah, special teams. Boo Carter maybe has a big play. I could see I guess I say this because it was a factor in that Michigan game too, but a big interception by a Jermon McCoy, a Will Brooks. I mean, that was such a huge thing in that Vandy game. Was that Jermon McCoy interception. It was Tennessee just rolled straight downhill after that, and I mean that in a good way. It was an avalanche after that interception, and Tennessee just kind of steamrolled them.
I will say Jermon McCoy. We talked a lot about Jeremiah Smith and how good he is. Jermon McCoy's matched up against Ryan Williams. Went one-on-one with him, made that great interception in the end zone, and really kept him in check. He really only caught underneath stuff. So he's played against one of the most talented players in the nation and more than held his own. So McCoy can be up to the challenge. I still think Smith's going to make plays. He's too good not to, no matter how good the defensive player covering him is. But McCoy has the ability to really give that guy some problems.
No doubt about it. And that could be such a big decider there. Jermod got named an All-American today. Thankfully getting his due for the season that he's had. And that was a massive part of that Alabama game. And man, that could be a difference maker. And the fact that they don't necessarily have that game-breaking tight end. Like, that really scared me when the specter of Penn State was on the table. Like Tyler Warren, that's their game breaker, dude.
That's a bad matchup for Tennessee.
Yeah, exactly. At least here, it's kind of your like Alabama. It's your Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, more than it is a tight end who will just break your back across the middle.
And Ohio State can still attack the middle of the field, but
no doubt. And I would if I was them. Or maybe Ryan Day will just be an absolute bonehead like he was against Michigan. And
that is on the table. He's got
you never know.
Chip Kelly, his old college coach, and calling plays for him, and they don't seem to be really on the same page. And Chip Kelly's magic isn't quite the same as it was back in those Oregon days when he had such a fast and talented roster. Maybe, who knows? Everybody thinks they're going to go air it out, right? Like, we all think that. That's all that everybody's been talking about. Like, there's no way they use the same game plan as they did against Michigan. Why would you do that? What if they do, though? I mean, what if they just go right? They're like, no, we're gonna stay with it. It's gonna be cold. That's how we're gonna win this game.
Yes, I mean, it's seriously. What if Nico finally, I mean, you saw stripes of this in that Vandy game. What if he finally puts it together?
Maybe
What
not.
if this is the game where he just, here it is. It's like, like Dalton Connect against Auburn last year, where you're down 10 late in the second half, and then just all of a sudden, oh wait, we got the best dude on the floor right here. And then suddenly you just have a performance like that. Maybe that combined with Sampson, and like, Lord knows, football's a funny game. Big Ten Jeff, of course, in here, he chooses Ohio State 28-13. Master Sergeant, maybe another Ohio State fan, or just a very pessimistic Tennessee fan. 38-17 Buckeyes. Chris says 31-24 Vols. And Cromez says 30-24 Tennessee. So I think Ohio State comes out hot, but Tennessee's defense settles in and takes over. I definitely hope so. Ryan says 24-21 Tennessee. Speak it into existence. This is the exact setup for one of the most sensational moments in the history of Tennessee sports. It would just be so crazy. So hey, let's go out.
One other thing that Tennessee cannot do in the penalties, and this isn't just false starts, and pre-snap penalties. That goes without saying. You cannot have these crazy holding calls constantly from your offensive line that are away from the ball that don't really impact the play. Once the play's past you, just you got to know when to let go and when to give up on the play. And unless the quarterback is about to get killed, at which point you have to hold to give yourself another down and to not get your quarterback killed. It's the only time I understand those penalties. But these ones when you're holding on a screen pass and you're on the other side of the field, like what? That's dumb. You cannot do that stuff. You can't have face mask penalties. You can't have late hits, personal fouls. And I love the way Omar Norman Lott plays the game. I love the way he plays. But man, you gotta dial it back just a little bit. You cannot go over the edge and cost yourself, because that's, the worst thing that can happen is 3rd and 12 and you stop them and you give them a first down because it's roughing the passer or something like that. Just play smart. You got to play smart on the road to win.
Yes. You have to. And no better time than now. All right. Well, let's finish with a little bit of transfer portal talk. It's going to be a little bit of a long one, as we probably expected that. Being the playoff edition of the show. Little transfer portal talk, little basketball talk. We'll wrap it up right after I tell you about Zen Sports. Zen Sports just picked their grand prize winner for the November Big Game Sweepstakes, and they are running it back this December with the Big Game Sweepstakes College Edition. This time, instead of going for the big game in the pros, they're giving you a chance to go for the very first big game in the new college football tournament. There's a grand prize of $10,000 cash and 2 tickets to the biggest college football game of 2025. It's the one in Atlanta. And the ability to earn entries on every bet you place in December. It doesn't get better. If you don't win the grand prize, don't worry. You'll also have a shot to win 10 smaller prizes that grant you $1,000 towards any college football playoff game. So what are you waiting for? Head to zensports.com/sweepstakes for a full list of rules and earn a $100 no danger first wager while you're at it. Zen Sports, betting just got better. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. No danger wager limited, plus 500 odds to qualify. Terms and conditions apply. A qualifying wager for a wager entry must have minimum odds for any leg in the entry of at least -250. American odds. For clarity, a -251 does not qualify. Head to zensports.com/sweepstakes for all terms and conditions. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. So insanely, I would say stupidly, the transfer portal is open, and it is a freaking sliding door at every program in America right now, even including Tennessee. And you have to. It's just they have to fix this where this doesn't happen right now. It's just so dumb for everybody
There's
involved.
an easy fix. There's an easy, quick fix. It doesn't take long. Just don't have a winter transfer window. I know you can't back it up because the academic calendar. Just move it till May. And yes, that means transfer players can't go through spring practice. But what it does It will curb some of these portal entries while still allowing players the freedom to move and transfer and get out of situations or go find better situations. But it eliminates the portal as a plug and play Wild West, this highest bidder, because it's not free agency. People keep saying it's free agency. It's not. It's the highest bidder. I mean, you see players hit the portal, commit to a program, go through spring practice, and then they play with another program the following year. Yeah, I mean, we saw it with Tyler Barron. We saw it with a number of players last year, and you've already starting to see it this year. Caleb Webb, a player that just left Tennessee, committed to Wake Forest Saturday. His new head coach resigned today. Is he going to stay at Wake Forest? I don't know. Maybe.
I didn't even think about that.
I mean,
That's brutal.
It's complete chaos, and it's not good for the player. And this has nothing to do with money. I'm paying whatever. Yeah, they are the product. Without them, this is not a billion-dollar industry cash cow for everybody. So they are the product. They deserve whatever. I don't care how much it is. That somebody else can figure that out. That knows way more about the economics of the sport. But the actual player, like, no amount of money changes the fact that these players need development. And I don't care if you're paying, like with Nico. People talk about how he's had up and down parts of his season, and what we're paying him $8 million. I'm like, he's still 19, 20. Like, it doesn't change how you develop. Nothing about how much you're being paid changes that. And what is best for a player, and this will always be true, except in rare cases, go play 3 to 4 to 5 years at a program under one coaching staff, if possible, within that program. And I guarantee you that player is going to be more prepared, better prepared for the NFL than the player that's played at 3 different programs in 3 years. So just eliminate it as this weird, like, plug and play type deal, where some programs are building their complete rosters almost through the portal. It's not sustainable. It's dumb. You can do away with all of this madness, and the player will be better for it. The sport will be better for it. I doubt it happens, though.
I do still think this. I want to say I said this probably a year ago, but I think in time, the extreme numbers of guys transferring when it first becomes available will tone down in the future, because I think you're going to see that so many of these guys hopping in the portal will never play college football again. They have gone into the portal and played their last snap of collegiate football.
Or it just doesn't go the way they think it was going to go.
Yes. And if it's not that, it could be, oh, well, I really wanted to go to an ACC team, and they end up going to Jacksonville State. Like, it could be anything like that, and it just has to happen enough times where enough guys have sort of horror stories and tell other guys and go like, whoa, hey, maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you don't want to hop to 3 different schools in 3 years and do all of this stuff.
Not to mention, you're making a decision in like 3 weeks' time. Both sides, the coach and the player, and that leads to a lot of bad decisions on both sides. There's just not enough time to know what you're getting into, plus so many coaching changes. Like, who knows, the coaching carousel now is so – the calendar of that, it's not like it used to be, where you knew by the first week of December most of these vacancies are going to be filled. You might have some position coach movement, but you knew what you were getting into. And to your point about, you know, it where these players land and how it ends up going for them, Walker Merrill, you know, that played at Tennessee, that left after 2022, scored a few touchdowns at the end of the year, left, went to Wake Forest, just like Caleb Webb. Couldn't see the field at Wake Forest, back in the portal now. It's just, it's not what people think it is, and what it's being used for now, I think, is detrimental to the athlete themselves, more than anything. It's not the money of it. It's just, it's not what's good for the sport, this current setup.
The piece that's not going to go away is guys getting the highest value for their services. That's always going to be the case as long as you can transfer at all and you can get paid, especially now that it's above board. That's going to continue. It's crazy that you finally started to see things like 247 on 3 tweeting that this college football player has signed a new deal. It has signed a larger deal with Louisville or whoever, and is planning to stay. It is what it is. That's not going to stop. But I do think that the extreme number of dudes jumping in, this just ridiculous shuffle that we're seeing, I do think that'll tone down in time. Might be wrong, but I just think you'll have enough horror stories with guys eventually where the word will get out where, hey, maybe you don't want to be hopping around like that. It is a red flag, and it can potentially go very badly for you. So we'll see. But with that being said, Tennessee so far, I think the number I saw today was 9 guys have jumped. None of them overly consequential. Obviously, I mean, your starters, you're not going to get any starters jumping from this Tennessee roster. Some depth pieces I think that you were thinking would be hanging around. Jalen Smith in particular, he's probably the one that I look at and I go, man, really?
He played some
Like,
snaps against
yeah, he did.
Kentucky, maybe. I mean, it was a big percentage of snaps he played in an SEC game.
Yeah, he had some moments. He had enough moments where I went, "Oh, he's a guy that's coming up. He's coming up.
Yeah.
Like he'll be a guy for us in the future, I think." He's jumping in, but otherwise, I mean, a lot of those receivers, I'm not sure any of those guys are going to see the field. I'm not. Like Nimrod, you got down to like 3 dudes in that wide receiver core being injured, and Nimrod was still barely seeing the field. So that one's not surprising. Caleb Webb's not surprising. You have Braylon Staley, you have Mike Matthews, you got other guys. They're going to go into the transfer portal during this portal session. They're going to get somebody like that. That's going to happen.
And you got dudes you signed too, like Travis Smith coming in that you hope contribute quickly.
Exactly. So I'm not.
Cam Seldon. That's the one.
That one. Yeah, I hate that. It's not. That one is not necessarily shocking, but I hate it.
Yeah,
because he is a good athlete.
For that guy coming in.
Yeah.
And he had some tough luck too. You know, he had some tough injury luck that I feel like he wasn't able to really step up and take that number 2 or number 3 role this season. And when Peyton Lewis was playing really well, Deshaun Bishop playing really well, it was going to be hard for him then to come back and pass those guys. I still think he's a really good player. It's a guy that you would like to see stick around, but I get it. Like I get the transfer part of it and why guys transfer. It's just the whole timing of it just leads to bad decisions, quick decisions, and I think you need more time to make such a big decision.
Well, maybe in the years to come, it won't be as chaotic of a transfer scene. But as of now, there really hasn't been any movement. Tennessee had who was the guy, Mo today, offensive lineman from Arizona, Wendell Mo, visited this weekend, and that's a guy for the offensive line, need all the help you can get there. So I was glad to hear that they had a visitor there. I mean, obviously there's going to be guys where you're not going to hear the rumblings until it basically happens.
And we've seen this with Tennessee a lot where guys come in to visit and you're like, oh, they're in on this guy, and they visit and it's just not a match. Like we saw that with the tight end from UConn last year who ended up at NC State. I don't even know if he actually came to visit, but there was like a lot of interest there, and then it just kind of fizzled out because they just want to match. And that's going to be huge for Tennessee and all of their portal guys that they take. The culture piece is huge. We've talked about that a lot before. But right now, I think you're seeing a lot of teams connected to players. And if you're a Tennessee fan, you're like, well, you know, why isn't Tennessee in on this guy? You know, there's so many receivers, and you haven't really seen Tennessee connected to many of them, and some of them are already committing. Same thing at some other positions, and that's kind of the way Tennessee's operated. Like they're not at the front of the line on a lot of this because they're looking for a certain type of player that fits exactly what they're looking for, and for the most part, they're making the right decisions on those. Not every one, because again, it's such a quick process that you're not going to bat 1,000 on that ever. But I think now too with the playoff picture, I mean that's where Tennessee's sole focus is right now. I mean, there's still obviously some guys coming in. You mentioned that there are some guys making visits, but they're not all in on like trying to raid the portal. They'll figure it out. You know, they've got some time. They've got another window. They've got guys coming in. I'm sure they've got their eyes on some guys that maybe aren't, like Jermod McCoy at this time last year. We had no idea who that guy was, and he's the best transfer player you've added that's not named Hendon Hooker at this point. So you got to kind of trust the process on that, to borrow a term from Nick Saban. And I don't think it's like a red flag that they're not heavily involved with a bunch of guys right now.
You do have elements like this hanging out in the NIL era, though. Chromaz asks, have y'all heard anything about Samson getting a new NI deal and potentially coming back next year. I don't know that I've heard anything that's like a real solid, oh, they're negotiating with him or any, but I think there is a reality where you could give him an NIL deal sweet enough to where he comes back. He's undersized for the league. Let's be honest there. But in some sense, that makes him a really good college running back. And it's gonna be pricey if that's the case. When
his
how
draft
much
stock's as high as it's gonna be right now.
Yeah.
Like, what are the chances of him having that same season next year? Because you're hoping Nico takes a big step and you don't need him to rush for
exactly
1,500 yards, and you're in Peyton Lewis and Deshaun Bishop take another step forward, and you can divvy up those carries a little more. So I think his draft stock right now is as high as it's going to be, and that would be his leverage for any sort of NIL deal. I think that'd be pretty pricey.
I will put it this way: money talks, and you never know. If I am giving him advice, I'm telling him to go to the league. I love it. I mean, he's the absolute. I mean, what a dude. He's been a legend for Tennessee, a straight up legend for you. I would tell him to go to the pros.
Yeah,
if
he
came to me and asked me, that's what I'm telling him.
If you're a running back, the best thing you can do is go after your third year, because it's the only real chance you're going to have at getting a contract, like a free agent deal after that rookie contract, which are really tough for running backs. I mean, you got to be a really good player to get those, but that's really the only chance. If you come out when you're 21, 22 and you come up for that deal when you're 24, 25, it's about the only chance. Just if you go when you're 23, then you're 26, 27 going into free agency, it's just not going to happen. They're not, unless you're just a star, unless you're a Derrick Henry or just a freak athlete that's Saquon, there's not many of those guys in the league anymore. You're going to be on 1-year deals kind of for the rest of your career after that rookie deal.
We'll see. Again, like I said, money talks. Who knows? I guess one final thing that we could bring up that we'll finish with just talking about that Illinois game with basketball. But I did think it was funny this week seeing Jarek Arantano kind of emerge from the woodwork, and a guy who on this show, we wrung him out when he was a Tennessee quarterback because he wasn't very good when he was a Tennessee quarterback. But a big function of that was the coaching staff. Coaching staff was garbage. There's a lot to talk about there. But but he on Twitter this week said that he was ready to go on any Tennessee shows. DMs are open, and I'm ready to go all back in with Tennessee, which is nice to see. I like that he still identifies with Tennessee because I think he left it all out there for Tennessee in his time during some of the absolute worst years that this program has ever experienced. And bless him for that, for going through the complete ringer in that way. I will say, like probably everybody else, I did send him a message and just say, hey, come on the Big Orange podcast. And he ignored me. Maybe it was because of things we said on the show about him. I do not know. But he will not, at least as of now, will not be coming on the Big Orange podcast. So I'm sorry for whatever I said, Jarrett. I don't know if I can make it up to you, but yeah, I just thought that was a funny thing that happened.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, you guys can go tag him. Tell him it's we're friendly over here. Yeah, well, I think we were probably critical of him, like a lot of people were, like you would be with any quarterback. But
yeah,
I plenty of times I remember sending tweets and having tons of replies that were not nice about, when I talked about how tough he was or how he really gave his all for Tennessee, because he really did. I mean, the guy's from New Jersey. He stuck through 2 years of Butch Jones and 3 years of Jeremy Pruitt. 2017 to 20, outside of that 2019 year, which still had some real bad. He should have been a 10-win team that year, easy. Had some real bad moments at times. The guy stuck through and didn't leave many times when we thought he was going to leave. He did use that last year of eligibility at Washington State, which, I understood. There's guys coming in, new coaching staff. You've already been through a couple. Let's see what else is out there and how we can wrap up our career if you're him. But I appreciated the way he played the game. I appreciated how tough he was and the mental aspect of dealing with all that criticism. I can't imagine what that's like. And Ben Hall mentioned, I thought it was kind of weird if asking people to have him on. I think probably, he's had 4 years now to reflect on his time at Tennessee and kind of put some distance maybe between some of the bad memories and look at it from a different view. And it is where he spent, 5 years of his collegiate career out. Yeah, that 1 year at Washington State he had, but Tennessee's what college home is for him. So, and I think he wants to embrace that. I think he wants to embrace being part of this university, and I think the fans should embrace him. And for the most part, it looks like most fans are doing that. I think fans have had that same kind of time to reflect and realize what he did for Tennessee and what he went through and stuck out at Tennessee when he didn't really have to. So it's it's not always pretty in the SEC. It's a tough deal playing quarterback in the SEC. And if you're good enough to play in the SEC and you make that decision, it's not always going to go well. It's not always going to be perfect. And unfortunately for Garantano, we never really saw him at his best because he just had too many different coaches, too many different voices. Yeah. And even when Jim Chaney was at Tennessee, you had Jeremy Pruitt trying to call plays and override him, and you had the different quarterbacks coaches in and out. It was never a recipe for success for him at Tennessee.
The odds were very much stacked against him, and I was trying to find somebody just said it that it every week it was like watching right here. Michael Westerbury said if this is about Jerry Garantano, he definitely gave his all for Tennessee. Every weekend was almost watching a murder with him. And I mean Eric says it here. He was getting sacked like 10 times a game.
Oh yeah. He played with a broken hand. I mean, that's not everybody's doing that.
He was incredibly, incredibly tough and stuck it out through some absolute utter nonsense. It was tough to be a fan at that point, much less play for the dang team. Mm-hmm. I cannot imagine it with all the dynamics that kid probably saw behind the scenes there.
Oh yeah,
it had to be so crazy. And in fact, I would say this: I would love to hear about it. JG.
Yeah, come on the show and share some Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt stories.
And if I can give a little pitch here, I've been doing a show for 3 years now with a quarterback who, during his time at Tennessee, went through some very tough times, went through kind of getting drugged through the mud with Tennessee fans. And it took, I'm speaking of Jonathan Crompton, our game day show. Watch our game day show. We're going to be on during the playoff this Saturday, halftime post game on this channel where you're watching now. But I have talked to him about it. It's very interesting. I'm not going to tell his story for him, but it took him a long time to come back to Tennessee. Longer than Jerry Garantano to come back around. And it's really, really tough to go through that. And so I would say, who is more qualified, if I can give a pitch to JG, who is more qualified, frankly?
That's true.
To interview this young man than me. But there
I'll just scrub your Twitter so there's no mentions of
No, I am sure that I probably called for him to be replaced and said stuff about him playing in games, interceptions he threw or whatever. It is what it is. So JG, just know we look back and appreciate what you did. I'll just leave it there. So let's finish a little bit of basketball. We just got to mention it. Tennessee went to Illinois, and in a game against a team, they're not top 25, although they started out top 25. They are a good basketball team. I think they'll finish as a top 25 basketball team, Illinois. Tennessee went in, and in a game that I would say was one of the worst officiated games I have ever witnessed in my entire life. Went in and found a way to win. You legitimately, I hate the ref excuse. Seriously, I hate it. This thing was ridiculous. Yet 3 of your best players fouled out of this game, and no players fouled out for Illinois, if I'm thinking correctly. And I mean, it was Zakai Ziegler and Chaz Linger. I mean, it was your 2 cornerstone dudes fouled out of this game. Jordan Gainey comes in, hits some of the most clutch shots that you will ever see, hits the game-winning shot on an awesome play that they ran to absolute perfection with a nice little secret. I tweeted about that, a nice little secret screen by Cade Phillips at the top of the key that sort of changed the direction of the defender. Yeah, he did the butt screen.
Yep.
Where he's just standing at the top of the key, changes the angle of the defender so that it creates a better lane for the driver.
That's a Jokic move there.
It is. I mean, it was absolute, incredibly well coached perfection, and they pulled it out. This team is super, super tough. This team is really balanced. They have guys coming off the bench that are awesome. They have starters that are awesome. And even in a game, I mean, Igor Milic, horrible game. He had a terrible game, but then had one of the biggest steals and scores of that game. That was in a huge moment right at the end. Hey, it's all there for these boys, and that one was so fun. Oh my gosh, what a game!
Really, really impressive win. Tough place to play. Illinois always has a good atmosphere, and you saw that. I think not a lot went right. You missed a lot of free throws. Chaz Lanier, outside of fouling out, it wasn't his best, offensive game. He missed more free throws than you're used to him seeing. And to be able to win that game, for Jordan Gainey to step up when Ziegler's fouled out, Lanier's fouled out, and you need somebody to step up and go make the play when it had to be made. That's huge. I mean, that you don't want to be a one-dimensional team ever, and that shows that you can go in a road environment when nothing's going your way. Feels like you're not getting the calls. You're getting these fouls called, like the one on Meshack that everybody's talked about. Still haven't seen that foul yet. Just nothing's going your way. I mean, the disparity in fouls was so great that Illinois had to foul like 4 times at the end just to get in the 1-and-1, which is such a huge advantage for a team in that spot of the game, because and it happened, I think, on the first 1-and-1 trip to the line for Tennessee. You miss that front end and you've completely come up empty on that possession. I mean, it totally changes the way that you can play the end of a game. So you had to overcome all that and to be able to come out and get that win, which, look, I think we were all kind of prepared. Like, if this game doesn't go Tennessee's way, it's not that bad of a loss. It's on the road, tough calls, shots not going in. It happens. It's December in college basketball. This is not going to sink the season by any means. But with all that said, to go and win that game, just huge. I mean, I saw somebody tweet it as an NCAA tournament style game. That's what it felt like. And
yes,
the more types of those games that you're in this time of year, the better prepared you will be for them come March.
It was so gutsy. It kind of felt like last year when you went on the road and won at Alabama, and kind of just gutted out a incredibly tough win, and you kind of watched and you went, "Oh, this team's gonna be special." Like they have some funk that you don't have on an everyday college basketball team. They're set up now with the current schedule. They're going to have the best start in Tennessee basketball history, probably 14-0 before they go to Florida. I think that's a pretty good chance of that happening. They play Arkansas at home. It's going to be a fun game. I don't think that Arkansas team is very good with Calipari. And it's going to be fun because there's, some former Tennessee players on that Arkansas team that should be interesting to see them come back to Knoxville. But probably going to be the best start in Tennessee college or Tennessee hoops history. And it's all there for you. Go to a Final Four. And on that note, let's go win a playoff game. Let's go win a playoff game in Columbus, Ohio. If you have the means and the will, go get yourself a ticket to this game. Go show up in the cold. Bring a few coats. It's gonna be pretty cold out there, but it's there for Tennessee. Let's speak it into existence. It's time for a win. Time for a playoff win. Let's go to the Rose Bowl, and plant that flag at midfield. Let's go take that Tennessee.
Rich Eisen wants them to. Rich Eisen wants them to.
That. Yeah, Rich Eisen said, "Get the biggest Tennessee flag you can find. Keep it on the sideline the entire game, and then plant that baby at midfield right after."
I like how he said, put it on the sideline so I have to look at it the whole game. Just like, no, we lose this game, we're going to have to deal with that. I do like that idea.
Yes.
They're not going to plan it. And Miles Kitselman's already said they're not getting into those shenanigans, and I wouldn't expect that from Heupel. I'm sure he's talked to them about, if you do win this game, on to the Rose Bowl. That's done. But the idea of putting that thing on the sideline, like absurdly big. I want it to be so big that you see it on TV and everybody's like, what are they going to do with that? Just, yeah, that would be, play some mind games there, Heupel. I know he likes to.
I want it. Yes. And in this game, you got nothing to lose. Just go on, bring that smoke. Ohio State. I don't care.
The problem
I
is
don't care.
like John Campbell would go get that flag, and
Oh,
it
boy.
would be at midfield.
He would do that, and I would be in support of that. Just
yeah.
watch out for the pepper spray. That's what I would say.
Oh yeah, that too.
I'm Charlie Burris. That is Zach Reagan. Extra long show tonight. Thank you to everybody for watching. It's so crazy that we just continue to have kind of special shows like this where we get to cover incredible things that Tennessee sports is doing.
It's come a long way since 2020 when we started doing this.
Truly, who could have ever imagined? It's been what a climb to a playoff game for Tennessee football. Win, lose, draw. We'll be back here next week to talk about whatever happens. It's gonna be fun regardless. I'm so excited. So let's go win it. Let's go win this thing. Again, Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan. We appreciate everyone watching, commenting, always hanging out with us. We could not do it without you. I say it every show, but I mean it every show. Thank you again, and we will talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.